welcome back, everybody. It is the second hour. Yes, it's true. The second hour. Fire your MD now. It's all because of you. Thank you for your support. Couldn't have done it without you. It's all you. That's why we're here for 2 hours, Monday through Friday, from 3 to 5 Central, because of all the support that you have given us in spreading our message of health recovery through science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition to your friends, to your family, to everybody in your life. We are all in this together. And because we're all in this together, we're going to go right to the phone right away. I believe Cynthia is up next with a question about gluten. Cynthia, are you still there? If you are, you're live.
Hi, Dr. Glidden. Thank you. I'm calling for my son this time. He is 7.5 years old. He has high-functioning autism, and he has sensory processing disorder. And just to give you a little background, we already had an EEG and a sleep study to confirm that he doesn't have seizures. And I've already started him on the Healthy Start Pack, the cherry minerals, the selenium, the enzymes, and I just started Flora a week ago from talking to another person who works there. But my question is, I did a gluten and a casein peptide test right after starting the Healthy Start Pack, so I stopped everything and I gave him all this milk and gluten because I wanted to see what the test would show. And after the week, I put him back on the good food, bad food list. Now, when I got the results back, the casomorphine came out abnormal, and interesting enough, the week came out fine. But my question is, because he stares a lot, his attention level is obviously very short. I was assuming that the casein, it was having that opioid effect. I believe that that's something that it can trigger. And so I'm wondering if that's the reason for the staring. And like I said, he's been on the enzymes for almost a month now, total. And I just want to know, are the ultimate enzymes enough to help my son break down the casomorphine at that reaction level? Or should I also give him the sweeties because of the inattention? I'm not really sure if you can explain the whole opiate effect.
Yeah, well, you're kind of, yeah, okay, these are all very good questions, and you're kind of half in the boat and half out of the boat. There's a little bit of misunderstanding here, okay? So there's a difference, and don't hang up because we need to have a conversation here. This is a common thing that people misunderstand. Again, and why do we misunderstand it? Because it's a breakdown in the medical community. It's your medical doctor's job to know this and to tell you it and to educate you about it. I mean, for goodness sake, I know all this stuff. Why don't they? Well, they don't because they have no training, no clinical experience, no appreciation, and no respect for medical nutrition. They will tell you that it's got nothing to do with it, and they're 100% wrong. So the fact that you need to figure all of this stuff out on your own should drive the nails into the coffin to make you want to avoid the conventional medical profession like a heart attack, no kidding. Because it's just, I mean, for goodness sake, isn't it hard enough that you have a child that was born with autism and now you have to figure it all out yourself? I mean, that's like, coming down with a diagnosis of asthma or arthritis or high blood pressure, and you have to figure it all out yourself. Oh, guess what? That's what everybody does because the MDs let us down all of the time. So listen up. In Radio Land, there has been a dramatic rise in autism. 1 out of 10,000 births to 1 out of 80. 1 out of 80 children born today in the United States of America are autistic. And this is unacceptable. And it is an egregious failure on the part of every pediatrician in the United States. Now, there's a difference between an intolerance to a food and an allergy to a food. And when you have an allergy to a food, to complicate matters even further, you can have many different types of allergic reactions. You can have the classical allergic reaction, like people that are allergic to peanuts have. They'll eat something with peanuts in it, and they have an anaphylactic reaction, and 10 minutes later they're swollen up, like they were stung by a million bumblebees, right? That's called an immediate hypersensitivity reaction, and that's what most people think about when they think about food allergies. But there is an entirely other classification of food allergies that the naturopathic profession has brought to light, and these are called delayed hypersensitivity food reactions. They are mediated by a completely different subset of your immune system, and the antibodies that we check for when we check for a delayed hypersensitivity reaction are immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin M, IgG and IgM. IgA and IgE are immunoglobulin A and immunoglobulin E are the components of the immune system that are checked for immediate hypersensitivity reactions. So not to complicate or muddy the waters too much, what I'm communicating here is the fact that in the wonderful world of food allergies, there is a wide array of things that can happen to your body when you ingest a food that you're allergic to. And food allergy testing is not the most sensitive, nor is it the most specific thing in the world to do, because, you know, the laboratories, depending on which lab you use, depending on their testing methodology, depending on how up-to-date they are, the results are not going to be, you know, something that you can really take to the bank and rely on. I've been using different diagnostic labs all around the country for the last 24 years. There's only one lab that I would lean on if I wanted to ascertain whether or not somebody had a food allergy, and I was trying to do that with blood work. And you know, I don't get any kickback. I'm not paid for. I don't work for this lab. I have no professional relationship with the lab whatsoever. And having said that, in full disclosure, the lab that I use when I'm testing people for food allergies is US Biotech. They're out of Florida, US Biotech. You can only get a lab test from them if you go through a physician. So if you have a naturopathic physician or a chiropractor in your town and you want to do some food testing, then tell them to get an account with US Biotech, because in Dr. Glidden's opinion, they have the best testing methodology in the free world right now. But so we've got, on the one hand, we've got food allergies, and on the other hand, we've got food sensitivities. And you can be sensitive but not allergic, and you can be allergic but not sensitive, and you can be both. So it gets to be a pretty complicated little morass here. One of the things that we notice subjectively is that when a person eats wheat and they are allergic to wheat, it makes them sleepy and spacey. And when somebody eats dairy and they're allergic to dairy, it makes them angry and aggressive. How about that? It makes them angry and aggressive, and wheat makes people sleepy and spacey. So this, of course, would be an allergic reaction. And if you want to see some mind-altering, life-shaking videos, do a Google search for Doris Rapp, D-O-R-I-S-R-A-P like Peter, P like Peter, M-D. Doris Rapp is one of the first physicians in the United States to really underline and bring to light the relationship between consumption of allergic foods and mood disorders in children. And she's got videos on her website that will blow your mind. Children coming into her office, they're sweet little, you know, kids, and then she feeds them something that they're allergic to, and they turn into little demon kids within 5 minutes, and I am not exaggerating. Check the video out. Food has a dramatic effect on mood, especially if you're young and you're allergic. Whether you're autistic or not, food is going to have a net negative impact on the human body. So, what I would recommend that you do, Cynthia, what I would recommend that you do is eliminate the 10 bad foods from this child's diet. Eliminate the 10 bad foods. That means no gluten, no wheat, no barley, no rye, no oats. Even if they tested that positive or negative, you know, they did an allergy test and there was no allergy to wheat. You can be not allergic to wheat, but you can be sensitive to wheat. You can have a sensitivity to it, which is different than an allergy, an intolerance to it, which is different than an allergy. And regretfully, there's no test for that. There might be testing for this in 5 or 10 years, but the testing that's around now for gluten intolerance is just, it's pathetic. I wouldn't put my money on it, but that's okay, because we don't really need to do that, because it has, in our estimation, at 75%, of Caucasians, or of black people, and 85% of Caucasians have an intolerance to gluten. So 5 will get you 10 that your child has a problem with gluten. So I would just do a sweeping across the board gluten elimination, not only for your child, but also for you and for your husband as well. So no wheat, no barley, no rye, no oats, and then there's 6 other foods that we recommend you don't even look at, let alone eat. You can get that for free by going to my website and opting in for my free monthly newsletter. So avoid the 10 bad foods. And what we recommend is the 90 essential nutrients that you're doing, extra essential fatty acids that I can't remember whether you're doing that or not, selenium, sufficient to body weight. It's 1 bottle of selenium per 50 pounds of body weight per month. Don't worry about the digestive enzymes. I wouldn't use a digestive enzyme. It wouldn't be the first thing that I would consider in a child that's autistic, because we're not trying to get the child to be able to digest proteins more efficiently. We're trying to get the child to stop consuming proteins that are hard to digest. There's millions of proteins in the world. There's millions of things this kid can eat that he's not going to have a problem with. And if he's taking the 90 essential nutrients appropriate for body weight and you're putting salt on his food, his digestive enzymes should be just fine. Usually with autistic kids, we don't see a problem with digestive enzymes. We see a problem with the consistent consumption of all the wrong food all the time and an egregious lack of comprehensive medical nutrition. So what I would do is I would give him the Healthy Start Pack, I would give him the selenium, I would give him extra essential fatty acids, and to round it all out, Z-Radical. That's what I would do, plus a diet that's high in cholesterol. Give the child a diet that's high in good fat, eggs, butter, rare meat, chicken with the skin, turkey with the skin, more butter and salt the food. Do that for 90 days, plus the Healthy Start Pack and the supplements appropriate for his body weight, and call me back in 90 days with a report. Don't worry about the digestive enzymes. Don't worry about whether he's allergic or not. Eliminate the 10 bad foods immediately. Dr. Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. We're talking about Digestive Health Week, and Cynthia called up on the last segment with a question about gluten and autism and its relationship and what food should she avoid. So the recommendation for autistic children is to support and promote the health of their entire body, right? So we give the Healthy Start Pack, we give selenium appropriate for body weight, we give extra essential fatty acids, because essential fatty acids contain the raw materials that the brain and the central nervous system are made out of, and then we emphasize a diet that's high in foods that are high in cholesterol and avoidance of the 10 bad foods. Everybody avoids the 10 bad foods. Now, with autistic kids, with children in general, once you've avoided the 10 bad foods, it is entirely possible that you will notice that when the child eats cheese or drinks milk or has ice cream or has something that has dairy in it or has strawberries or blueberries or walnuts or whatever, that they get spacey after the fact, or that they get angry after the fact, or that there's some type of a reaction. And behavioral reactions, whether they're passive and spacey or active and aggressive, behavioral reactions post-consumption of a food that you're allergic to or intolerant to usually happen within 15 to 60 minutes after you eat the food. So give the child something. So when you have a child, whether they're autistic or not, and they throw a little tizzy, or they get really spacey, or space out, or become, semi-catatonic, staring off into space for no reason, the first thing you should consider is what was the very last thing they had to eat or drink. And then if you keep a running list, you can pretty much narrow it down without any expensive blood work that, oh my goodness, I can't give any milk products to my child because when I do, they get angry or aggressive or spacey or whatever. So if you're mindful moving forward, after you've eliminated the 10 bad foods, you can also dial in an anti-allergen, anti-intolerant diet without expensive lab work, just by paying attention to what happens downstream. And, I could go so far as to say that for children that have behavioral problems or mood disorders or, in fact, that are on the autistic spectrum, I would eliminate all dairy completely in addition to the 10 bad foods. Because, children, dairy consumption in kids that have gluten intolerance, and I know that all autistic kids have gluten intolerances, there's often an intolerance to dairy products as well. It can change based on the child's body weight. But just to be safe, and, I would just eliminate the stuff because you don't really need it anyway. Goat's milk is okay, and you can get all the cholesterol that you need from eggs. So that's what I would do. I'd do a diet that's heavy in eggs and, of course, salt all your food and see what happens, okay? All right, Cynthia, I hope that answered your question. Up next is Teresa, who's calling with a question about osteoporosis. Thanks for the call, Teresa. You are live.
Hello. Am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are, Teresa. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. Well, I am an extensive self-study, first of all, and a health coach, and I have delved into my connection with longevity, just so you have a connection. I had the joy of meeting you at the meeting in Houston area.
Oh, very good.
So I love your approach and your knowledge about so many things. So one of the things that I was diagnosed with was osteoporosis.
Yeah.
And in some of the studies that I wanted your thoughts on that I've done is that there's natural ways, of course, to reverse that aren't traditional. And in some of what I've studied, there was the emphasis put on eliminating any type of calcium supplementation for about 4 months, and increasing magnesium during that time frame to help pull any type of calcium deposits out of areas of your body that has not, where you don't want it.
Yeah, see, this is a disconnect, and this is the problem with a little bit of knowledge. I mean, you could go outside not knowing really anything about astronomy. I know, you could know that there's the Earth and the Moon and the Sun and a couple of planets, right? And you could know all that, and you could go outside and look up and make the wrong assumption that it's the sun that moves around the Earth. For goodness sake, it's right there in front of your face. It's the sun that's moving, right? Well, no, not really. It's the Earth that's moving around the sun, and it's our perspective that makes it look like it's the other way around. Well, it's exactly the same with what you're talking about with calcium. I'm up against the hard break. Stick around, Teresa. I'll answer this question when we come back. 866-582-9933 is the number to call to speak with me live today or any day that we're broadcasting live. That's Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time. The number to call if you're listening to the podcast, which airs for 24 hours immediately after the live broadcast is over, is 855-347-3696. If you're listening to the podcast and would like help ordering the supplements or finding out about the business opportunity that's available here, that number, 855-347-3696. And while it's on my mind, tomorrow, special guest, Mike Randolph. Mike Randolph is the director of field development in the Longevity family. Since Mike and his company have been involved with Longevity, their revenues have gone up 400%. Mike knows what he's talking about when it comes to the business opportunity available through Longevity. We always have a lot of fun when Mike Randolph is here. That's going to be in the first segment tomorrow, so mark your calendars and tune in. Now, we're talking to Teresa right now about osteoporosis. Teresa, are you still with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. So, this gets a little complicated, Teresa. So, one of the things that I love about the holistic approach generally, and Dr. Wallach's method specifically, is that it all boils down to a simple solution. So, when it comes to figuring out the metabolism of the body, we basically, at any point in time, have two options. We can either trust man or we can trust God, and if you don't believe in God, we can trust nature. So it's always better to put our money on God or nature rather than man's intellect in trying to figure things out. Because, quite frankly, medical doctors get it wrong most of the time. You know, one of my favorite quotes from Voltaire about medical doctors is that the doctors are people who know little about disease, less about medicine, and nothing about people, right? They know nothing about how this is all knit together. And so just like it's easy for us to look up into the sky and come to the wrong conclusion about the relationship between the Earth and the Sun and how they move around each other, it's also it's a million times easier to become confused about what's going on inside the human body. So rather than try to second guess or micromanage the body, what we do is basically say that the human body knows how to fix itself, the human body wants to fix itself, the human body is endowed with a natural, God-given or nature-given force that has intelligence in it. So, if there's too much calcium anywhere in the body, it's not because the body has had too much calcium in it. It's because there has been a functional breakdown in the systemic nutritional support that the body needs. Quite frankly, it is extremely difficult to give anybody too much calcium. You can do it, but it's really, really, really hard to do. So rather than thinking that calcium depositions in the bones or bone spurs or whatever are caused by too much calcium, it's better to think of those things as being a functional breakdown in the system because of a general lack of comprehensive, holistic medical nutrition. So rather than focusing on one nutrient or two nutrients or three nutrients, which is what Linus Pauling and all of his contemporaries did, and which is what most MDs do now, we actually define, in fact, the holistic method here. And quite frankly, I could make a better argument that calcium deposition, bone spurs, and the such is a problem of not enough calcium in the body, quite frankly. But I digress. So what we want to do here, Teresa, if we do in fact have somebody who has a definitive or presumptive diagnosis of osteoporosis, is to simply get them on board with a program that provides their bodies with all of the nutrients necessary to have strong and healthy bones, and then lean on the belief that the body will fix it. So the bone spurs go away when you give enough calcium and enough magnesium and enough of the other 88 nutrients, and you stop eating food that's coming up the works, and then the body fixes the bone. Now, quite frankly, the bone it's fascinating, and Fosamax and Boniva work by suppressing the mechanism inside the body through which the body chews up old bone. That's how it works. The body is constantly chewing up old bone and laying down new bone. Fosamax and Boniva and the bisphosphonate, osteoporosis medicines that MDs tout work by acknowledging that, the body is chewing up old bone all the time and trying to lay down new bone. So rather than develop a medicine that stimulates the body's deposition of new bone, the MDs, like idiots, develop a medicine that puts the process that chews up old bone to sleep. This is what the bisphosphonates, Fosamax and Boniva, do. So you put the cells in the body that chew up old bone to sleep, so old bone accumulates in your bone. So now your bone density looks better and everybody's happy, but old bone is not healthy. And the body was trying to get rid of it in the first place, and then the MD came along and stopped it. So now you've got old bone accumulating in the bone, and this is why you get spontaneous fractures, and, your face falls off if you take Boniva or Fosamax, because it causes your jawbone to spontaneously decay. And this is nonsense. So my point here is that the MDs recognize that the body has two processes. That's what Boniva is trying to affect one of them. So the naturopaths say, well, holy smokes, the body knows what it's trying to do, and it'll chew up old bone and lay down new bone if it has the stuff it needs to do that. So rather than try to micromanage it and figure it out with lots and lots of magnesium or not enough calcium or vice versa, what we do is just provide the body with the bone nutrients that it needs in order to fix itself, stop eating food that's coming up the works, and get the heck out of the way. Does that make sense to you, Teresa? Does this kind of all make sense?
Well, yeah, and I knew about what you shared, so it was refreshing to have you address that, because not everybody does, regarding the horrific side effects of these medicines that I flat refused to get on when my doctor told me to.
Yeah.
So it's frightening, the femurs that are just dissolving in people. I'm like, no, I'm not going there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, this is why, parenthetically, you don't see these drugs advertised on TV anymore, because there are so many lawsuits against them now. Spontaneous fractures. I mean, this is snake oil. This is the very definition of snake oil, right? It's a medicine that's supposed to do something. It does something entirely different, and in the process it hurts you, and it's expensive. That's the very definition of snake oil, and that's what Fosamax and Boniva are, and that's why you don't see them advertised on TV anymore, because now there's all these class action lawsuits against them, against drugs that were approved for your use by the Food and Drug Administration, approved for your use by the Food and Drug Administration, and now they have class action lawsuits against the companies that made them because they hurt people. And this is nonsense. And we continue to go back to these people. We continue to support these people. We don't call the TV stations up in protest whenever we see the direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical ad, which is what we should do. I mean, if everybody got a conscience, and if everybody grew a spine and started to complain to the news outlets that carry these ridiculous commercials, then maybe we could make a difference in how medicine is practiced here. Maybe we could. A better way to make a difference is not to fight the pharmaceutical industry, but to ignore them completely. And this is why longevity exists. This is why we exist. This is what we do. This is why we do what we do. We encourage people. We show people how to make themselves so healthy with boilerplate medical nutrition that they can safely, easily, and effectively stop their prescription medications and regain their health most of the time. So, what do we do? To support and promote the health of the bones in the face of a presumptive or a definitive diagnosis of osteoporosis or osteopenia, the recommendation is, survey says, one healthy start pack per 100 pounds of body weight per month, 1 bottle of selenium per 50 pounds of body weight per month, not to exceed more than 4 bottles a month, 1 extra bottle of Cal Toddy, 1 bottle of Cal Toddy per month, and 1 capsule of glucogel, 1 glucogel capsule per 10 pounds of body weight per day. So if you're 150 pounds, you need 15 glucogel a day. That's 5 with breakfast, 5 with lunch, 5 with dinner. That means you need 450 a month. So buy 2 bottles of glucogel at the 240 count or whatever. Do the math. You can figure it out. So that's the Healthy Start Pack, the selenium, the glucogel, and if there's extra money in the monthly budget, as many Z-Radical bottles as you can afford. Z-Radical is a really good supplement for anybody to take, and I did an entire webinar about why. That's in the archive section of my online health recovery program that's available now at fireyourmdnow.com. Now, the other thing, Teresa, is you got to stop eating the 10 bad foods, because from our point of view, those 10 bad foods will punch holes into your body's nutritional tank, and which will make it hard, if not impossible, for you to absorb the nutrients that I'm recommending that you take. You wouldn't put gasoline into a tank in your car that had holes in it, for goodness sake. Well, stop eating the 10 bad foods while you're on board the health recovery train and see what happens. Now, there's 2 more things that you, me, or anybody else can do to help our bones get healthier. Weight-bearing exercise. as you're doing the diet and the nutritional supplement program, go to the gym. Get somebody to show you, a personal trainer to show you exercises that you can do, weight-bearing exercise that you can do that puts stress on your bones. Because when you do put stress on your bones, your brain sends a message to your bones to strengthen them with more bone nutrients. So you can really increase the effectiveness of the bone strengthening program nutritionally, the nutritional bone strengthening program, while you are exercising with weight-bearing exercises. It's a really nice little rounded out therapeutic. And interestingly enough, I didn't know if you knew this or not, but, you know, hale and hearty 30-year-old men and women who are shot up into the space station, or they go to the moon, or they're in space floating around for more than 7 days, they come back to the Earth, they're osteoporotic. Why is this? Because they're in zero gravity. And they're no longer putting stress on their bones just by walking down the street. There's no gravity in space, right? So the longer that they're in space, the thinner their bones get, which is one of the reasons why one thing that's mandatory to do when you are in space is work out. You know, they've developed all these zero gravity training things that the astronauts do for their body in order to put stress on the bones that is not there simply because they're in zero gravity. It's very interesting. So by doing weight-bearing exercise, you can increase the speed at which your bones recover their health, and by eliminating a diet that's overly excessive with protein, you will also increase your body's bone health. So the recommendation is 60 grams, more or less, of protein a day. Measure how much protein you're eating every day, and I want you to dial in 60 grams or less of protein a day while you're on board with the bone building, the longevity, get your health back recovery program. Now, we are talking about digestive health this week, and let's do a quick review. The human digestive tract starts in the mouth and ends you know where. And here's how it goes. It goes the mouth and the teeth and the tongue and the saliva do the first job of chopping up food to get it into a smaller size, and then the food drops into your stomach, which is basically a big bag of acid. Your stomach, when it's healthy, the acid in your stomach is so acidic that if you were to chop your finger off, heaven forbid, swallow it, your stomach would digest it down to the bone in about 20 minutes. That's extremely acidic, man. But the stomach has a lining inside of it which is impervious to the acid. This is why the stomach acid doesn't burn a hole through your stomach and you die, because nature figured that one out a long time ago. Your stomach has a lining around it that prevents the acid from eating a hole in the stomach. Your stomach is a bag of acid, and when you're healthy, that acid is extremely acidic. It has a pH, an active pH of about 1.2. Ouch, man, that's acidic. So, your stomach, first your mouth, then your throat, then your stomach, and then after your stomach is your small intestine. You have about 9, 10, 11 feet of small intestine in your body, and it is the small intestine's job to absorb nutrients that you have just eaten or drunk into the bloodstream. And it is the entire process of digestion's job to break the food or the drink that you have just consumed into a small enough size so that the little food molecule can absorb across the wall of the intestinal tract. And the wall of the intestinal tract is populated with millions of little tissue called villi. That's V like Victor, I-L-L-I, villi. And get this, on top of the villi, there's thousands of microvilli, lending to the ridiculous fact that there are billions, with a B, of tissue in your small intestine, the sole function of which is to absorb nutrients into the body. Now, as food leaves the stomach and enters the small intestine, the gallbladder squirts bile into the small intestine. Your pancreas squirts pancreatic enzymes into the small intestine. And the bile and the pancreatic enzymes mix with the food, and as the food travels downstream in the intestinal tract, it gets smaller and smaller through chemical digestion and more chemical digestion, and then it gets so small that the little villi reaches out like an octopus tentacle, sticks onto the molecule of food, and brings it back into the bloodstream. That's a beautiful thing. And then the food continues down the small intestine. What gets absorbed gets absorbed. What doesn't get absorbed dumps into the colon or the large intestine, and then the body poops it out. The biggest problem that we have with our health is in the stomach and the small intestine. When the stomach goes south or the small intestine goes south and things start to break down in that part of your body, all hell breaks loose. Which is why the father of medicine, Hippocrates, said, right, let food be your medicine, and he wasn't kidding. I'll tell you why tomorrow. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. See you then.